Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to another ASP.NET MVC web app tutorial. Today we're going to look at how to create a form, and we're also going to create a new model and a new view, and we're going to use that form and we're going to send it to our controller, which is going to then put it in a model. And we're actually going to do forms in two different ways. The first way that we're going to see today is called a weakly typed synchronous form. And then the next one will be the strongly typed synchronous form. And by the way, don't forget to hit subscribe if you like this content. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to link my favorite gaming mouse that I use right now, the Razer Mamba Wireless, in the description below if you want to check it out. Helps out the channel if you use that link to buy literally anything on Amazon. You don't have to buy this. You can buy whatever you usually buy, and it helps out the channel. And it's there if you want to help out, and I appreciate it. But let's hop into it. There's a few things I want to do. So this might be a longer tutorial, but I think it's going to be really useful, especially if you're starting out. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new model. And basically what I want to do is I want to add users. And that's where we're not actually putting this in a database. We're more so pretending to add users. So these would be the steps right before you put it into the database. And then in the future, I will add a database to this and we'll go from there. But I want to add a model, and it's going to be called the user data model. And basically it's just going to hold things like their name and age, I think, are the two things that I want to store in this model. And you can add whatever you want. If you want to add email address, feel free to do that, whatever you think is appropriate. So I'm going to right click on models here in our MVC app and hover over add, and then we're going to add a class. And I'm going to name this class, I think I called it user data when I was speaking earlier. So we'll hit add. And it created this new public class user data. So I'm just going to have two properties of this class. It's going to be age and it's going to be name. So let's start with name. So we're going to do public string name with capital N, and we're going to have getters and setters just like that. And then the next one is going to be an integer. We're not going to do partial ages. No one does age like that, right? We're going to do age, and then also getters and setters. Cool. So that's basically it. Not much to it, right? Very good. So I think the next thing I want to do is I want to create our view. What is the web page that's going to be rendered that the user is going to see a form and they're going to enter in their information, hit that submit button, and then it goes to our controller. I'm going to go to Bootstrap, and I'm going to search on Google Bootstrap forms. And the reason I'm looking at Bootstrap is because Bootstrap comes standard with MVC when you create it and Visual Studio. So we're going to click forms here, and hopefully it'll give us a sample form, something like this, right? Email address, and then instead of password, we're going to have age and then a submit button. So let's go ahead. I'm just basically just going to copy this whole thing. Then we can take what we need from it, but it has all the basic stuff for us. So this is going to go on our home controller. I'm not going to create a new controller for this. I'm going to add it to our home controller. So we're going to right click on home in the views directory, and we're going to add a new view. And I'm going to call this add user. And then we're going to leave the rest as it is, hit add. And sooner or later, you'll see the add user.cs HTML right here. And I'm going to get rid of this header and, oh, nah. Let's put add a new user. Yay. And then I'm going to put in our form. Let's take a look at this. What do we want to change? So the label, instead of email address, let's have name. And I'm going to take out this for because we don't need that. And the input type is just going to be text. And we don't care about ID. We don't care about this. And yeah, we can put a placeholder, put name. But an attribute we also want to put in this input tag is actually name. It's the name for this input, and it's just going to be name because it's for the person's name. And we don't need this small text here. Okay. And I'm going to delete this other div at the very end because we only need two divs. We need one for age and one for name. So label, I'm going to get rid of the for again. And let's put age. And type, I change it to number. Keep the class. We're going to remove the ID. And the placeholder we can put No, we don't need a placeholder for age, do we? And let's put name is equal to age. Submit button, that's fine. We're going to keep it as it is. So everything here looks pretty good. And the things we need to remember from this are, what did we name the input fields? And we named it age, which is going to be an integer, and then name, which is going to be a string. And you can see that that kind of corresponds to the model we created, right? Age is integer, string is name. And that's important because in the controller, we're going to define a post method in our controller that's going to accept an integer and a string from this form. All right, so we need to add a few things, a few attributes to the actual form tag. And the first one is going to be action. And this is going to be the path to our home controller. So it's going to be /home and then / whatever we want to name this action in our controller, which we haven't actually created yet. If we go to our home controller, we have this test, which I think I created in the last video, but we haven't actually created it yet. But I think I'm just going to call it, whoops, I clicked on the wrong one. I think I'm just going to call it like add user as well. And then method is another attribute we have to put, and we're going to make it a post. And you'll see why that's important, how we tie it back with the controller. Okay, so we named it add user, the action. So let's go to our controller here, our home controller.cs, and we're going to make another public action result. And it's going to be called add user, and it's going to do something, right? Above it, we're going to define in these square brackets what kind of request is going to handle this add user method. So this is going to be HTTP post. That's how you define stuff like this. So with these square brackets right above the method, and then inside, anything inside of this will run when add user is invoked by HTTP post. Sorry, that's a mouthful. So what I want to do is I want to create a new add user object. So let's go add user. User is equal to new add user. And we're probably going to get some squigglies because it doesn't know what add user is. So I'm going to hit control period. Because we didn't name it add user. Our model's name's user data. Whoops. So we're going to change that to user data. I'm going to copy, change that. And then we'll hit control period. And now you can see use YouTube demo web app.models. So we'll bring in the namespace. And now it goes and notices, oh, this is a class. So we'll create that. And then what we'll do is we'll define, okay, well, what's the user.name and what's the user.age of this object. So we need to take in some parameters. Like I mentioned, we have age and name, which are both parts of this form. So we have to actually put them as parameters of this method. So let's do string name with a lowercase n, and then int age. Okay, so this method will now be looking for these two values to be passed along when invoking it. So now we can do user.age is equal to age, and then user.name is going to be equal to name. And then actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this action result to a void. We're not actually going to return anything. If we wanted to, we could send them to another page once it's done. But I don't want to do that. I'm just going to leave it like this. That should be good. What I'll do is I'll put a breakpoint right here so we can make sure all of these get set. Okay, and now we're missing one more thing. This one will be an action result because we need to render this form. We only have the post, not HTTP get. HTTP get gets some kind of information. So let's do a public action result. Add user. And it's just going to return view. So this one, when you run it, it's just going to return the adduser.cshtml and render that. So let's go ahead and run this. Everything should be set up, hopefully. We'll find out. It popped up my other window here. but it's going to take us to the index, and there's not actually a link anywhere for us to get to here. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to do /home and then /add user. There we go, to get to the form. Because as you can see, yeah, we didn't add a link or anything. So let's go ahead and let's add a name. Put John Smith, I guess. Then age, I'm going to put 21. All right, let's submit this. And you can see this breakpoint has been invoked. And now if we look, user.age is 21. And this probably isn't set yet. Let's hit F11 now. And it'll go over here. And we'll hover over it. And I can see that user.name is now equal to John Smith. Then if we wanted to, we can do something with this object. Maybe send it to the database, which we'll do in a future video. Or whatever else we want to do with it. We can run some kind of logic. So that's how you can simply use forms in MVC ASP.NET in your web application. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.